beer, it's good for you.
Hello and welcome to the video. In this video I'll take you through the core items and things that I use for every brew. I'll explain these in order that I use them in, which starts with recipe planning and ends with cooling. So let's get started. Brewing software these days has become so good and useful that I simply could not imagine going back to any other method of planning a recipe as a recipe writer. I start off with Brew, which allows me to plan my grain bill, but it also allows me to let the software do all of the heavy lifting when it comes to all of the essential calculations of original gravity, final gravity, hop IBU, water treatment and water volumes for mashing and sparging, which is very useful even if you're not a recipe writer yet or have no plans to be. Brewfather isn't the only brewing software out there, but it is likely the most popular software these days for brewing, and it is my favourite due to how it is so well put together and works. It has everything that I need and more besides. It comes with a year's subscription model, but I consider this to be great value. If you wish, then you can use Brewfather for free, but this comes with the limitation of storage of a maximum of 10 recipes or batches, and you're unable to import or export data. When it comes to planning my hops, I have in recent times become very taken with the software Hop Control. Like Brewfather, this is a planning tool but dedicated to hops. With Hop Control I can research hops within a huge database to really narrow down the exact aromas and flavours that I am looking for. Once I have some chosen hops, I can then see how these hops will play together to ensure that I have the intended profile set out within my hop selections. Part of this is also optimizing hops for me, which means fewer trial batches, especially for hop-forward recipes, as well as minimizing costs for myself and those that brew the end recipes that I share on YouTube. Because hops are certainly going to be a core part of a beer's cost, this software can certainly save you some money without compromising your end brew. When it comes to preparing for a brew day, I always buy all of my ingredients in bulk and prepare them myself. I want to have total control of this, so I mill my own grain. I rely on having accurate scales so that I can weigh my grain and hops. For items with a higher weight, which is usually going to be just base malts, I use these industrial scales that I have had for some years. Items like this these days do not need to be expensive, but I would suggest against going for anything too budget, because you will get what you pay for. Something in the middle of the price range is usually a great place to go. When it comes to lighter items, which will usually be hops and smaller amounts of grain, which are normally going to be specialty malts, then I use a jeweler's scale, as you can see here, which is simply much more accurate than larger scales when it comes to weighing smaller amounts. The trick with using these smaller scales is having containers that can have a narrow enough footprint to fit on the scale without obscuring the screen, but it's also some height so that you can add appropriate amounts for brewing. When it comes to the actual milling of my grain, as I mentioned previously, I do this myself so that I have total control. Certainly you can have a homebrew store do this for you, but personally I prefer to mill my own grain for various reasons. Firstly, I want to ensure that my grain crush is consistent to my needs. Milling at home allows me to keep this identical. This is one of the reasons that I favour Brewfather's electric grain mill, in that you have very fast and very easy access to the gap size and milling speed, which can be changed literally in moments. Secondly, by having my own grain mill, I'm able to put together a brew at a moment's notice rather than having to go to a store. So for this reason I have a stock of grain at home that will cover the basic needs of most brews too, for flexibility. When it comes to a choice of brewing system, these days I only use electric all-in-one brewing systems. At one point not so long ago, my test batch setup was a pot and bag on a pot plate, as outlined in a previous video some time back that went through this. However, but since the Brewzilla Gen 4 units allow for a minimum batch size of just 5 litres these days, I now use these for all of my test batches. At one point I also used to brew with a 3-vessel system, but frankly all-in-one systems are so good and so much more convenient compared, so I would really never consider going back to a 3-vessel system. I have several all-in-one brewing systems that I rotate, but that is just because of my YouTube channel, though I must admit that it is fun to brew on different types of equipment. The brewing systems I have access to vary wildly in price from budget to premium, but there is actually no one system that I prefer as such, because they all have pro features and quirks, and I enjoy brewing on each and obtain very similar results from each too. No matter which brewing system I am using, I much prefer to have it on a platform that has wheels so that it can safely, effortlessly and quickly be moved when needed. When possible, I like to use this solution from Kegland as it is not made of wood, which quickly degrades when exposed to heat and moisture. All I do with this one is give it a quick wipe with a cloth after a brew to stop it from smelling, and it's ready for the next one. The need for wheeled platforms like these for me is heightened as I brew in a pretty small bathroom, but I feel that no matter what your brewing situation is, there can often be times when moving the brewing system is either essential or helpful to avoid hazards. At one time I was very much for stirring my mash in gradually using a mash paddle. This is certainly a very relaxing process, but to do it right it simply takes time, and like I guess for everyone, time is not always on my side. So these days I'm using this mixer attachment from Kegland that is made from pure stainless steel. Naturally there are alternatives to this product, just make sure that you are using one made from stainless steel. Cheaper alternatives are usually made for stirring concrete and the like, but these are not food safe, and can leach all sorts of nastiness into your beers that a boil will not solve. So pay a little bit more and use your mixer with confidence, and as long as you take care of it then you need not buy another one. When it comes to the boil, you'll always see me using a stainless steel paddle. This paddle is from Brew Tools and I've been using it for quite some years now. As you would imagine, being a Brew Tools item, it is very nice quality, but I also like that its size is very compact, so that it will lay across the top of different brewing systems I use, whilst not in use, without it being an easy thing to knock to the floor. Being stainless steel and not wood, this will also not degrade in the same way, meaning that it will last a great deal longer compared to a wooden paddle. Brewing gloves are certainly an essential thing to have around for every brew for hand protection from heat and also mess. For example, I often use gloves to remove used grain from a grain basket after a mash that is pretty hot but also quite messy to use for your hands, and the same goes for when I'm removing hop sludge from the bottom of a brewing system and false bottom during cleaning. So for me the brewing gloves are not just for heat protection but also so that I do not have to keep washing my hands. I believe that a refractometer should be in every brewer's toolbox during a brew. Personally, I rely on the fast and accurate results from Anton Paul's Smart Ref refractometer to make sure that everything is on track. Naturally, there are cheaper solutions out there, but frankly none are going to be as reliably accurate. I understand that not everyone has the budget though, so I would certainly urge you to find the best accurate solution you can find for your own budget. Lastly, let's look at Wort chilling. When it comes to chilling solutions, many systems these days are shipped with very no-frills immersion coolers, which are pretty slow compared to aftermarket solutions. Grainfather are the clear exception to this rule, and ship their core brewing systems with very good counterflow chillers. In actual fact, I still use a spare Grainfather G30 counterflow chiller that I have converted to accept camlock fittings. I have to say that I vastly prefer using counterflow chillers for their speed and convenience compared to other chiller types, and I have several of these to ensure that each of the brewing systems I use has a counterflow chiller to suit it. However, I still use an immersion chiller for when it comes to cooling for hop stands, as these are suited to cool the whole wort, whereas a counterflow chiller cools just the wort that's within its coil. When it comes to immersion chillers, the king at the top of the throne goes to Jaded Brewing of America for their range of insanely fast 3-coil chillers. I personally use the solid chiller as it fits most all-in-one brewing systems. Again, this is not the cheapest route out there, but frankly it is the best route in my opinion, and these chillers come with a lifetime warranty too. I do hope that you found this video useful, informative and interesting. If so, why not consider liking and subscribing? For further support you can join the channel's Facebook group, and if you would like to support the channel then check out the channel's merchandise store, as all profits go back into the channel. Until next time, happy brewing!